Welcome to episode 79 of Gun Guy Radio. This is the podcast that shines a positive light on the firearms lifestyle. I'm your host, Jake Challand, and this is your weekly dose of positive firearms talk without the politics. Well, welcome to the show. Welcome to the video podcast feed. If you're watching on YouTube, thank you for putting up with the space. And I have a couple of quick announcements before we get started. If you want to catch the live shows that we're starting to at least try to broadcast here on the Firearms Radio Network, please follow our Google Plus page. You can get to that by going to firearmsradio.tv/plus. There's also a little G Plus link on the front of the Firearms Radio Network's website. Or I'm sure you can just search for it in Google Plus as well. But it's going to be a real easy way for you to be notified when the shows go up. And I can also schedule the show as an event, so you can sign up to be notified. I'm pretty sure it's pretty customizable whenever you want it to do that. So this week in guns, we're going to start broadcasting live every Thursday night at 8 p.m. Central Time. So that's 7 p.m. Mountain, 6 p.m. California time, and 9 p.m. Eastern time. And so you'll be able to come in, join the chat room, chat with other, listeners, viewers, and we may even, if we get a lot of response, we may even extend the show a little bit and do some listener feedback or questions out of the chat room at some point. But so follow us at the Firearms Radio Network's Google Plus page. And another announcement here is we have a new handgun radio podcast here on the Firearms Radio Network. It already has 3 episodes out. Ryan, my Chad, is doing a great job over there. You can subscribe and listen to that by going to handgunradio.com/iTunes. And we have a new upcoming show. It's not launched quite yet. And by the way, if you want to catch special pilot episodes that are only put out on the Firearms Radio Network's master feed in iTunes, you're going to want to subscribe to that. So you're going to want to go to firearmsradio.tv/iTunes, or on the front page of the Firearms Radio Network's website, there's a big iTunes subscribe to logo to the right-hand column. But that will give you a iTunes feed that every show on the network will automatically, download or at least show up in your queue. And we have a pilot episode of the Precision Rifleman podcast, or Precision Rifle podcast, I think is what it is. Great pilot episode. Those guys are working hard to get that podcast off the ground, but you can listen to it only over there on the Firearms Radio Network's master feed on iTunes. But anyhow, we're going to have another new show launching here in a couple weeks. It's a Firearms Insider podcast. And actually the Firearms Insider name, that's going to cover our FRN membership site and even our upcoming blog. But that podcast itself is going to be hosted by Danny Oakley. I interviewed her a few episodes ago here on Gun Guy Radio. She has a pretty amazing story and is really involved in the firearms community now. So very excited to have her launching that new show. And it's going to be more of a gun and gear review type show. But I guess she has like a dozen people already lined up to interview as well. So I'm pretty excited the direction she takes that show. And you can also follow us on Facebook. We put a lot of this new info up there on our social media, Firearms Radio Network on Facebook. Well, let's get right into the main topic. I don't want to bore you with all this intro stuff. So this week, today, we have a special guest on the line, Art Moore, who is the Eastern Regional Manager for the Kahr Firearms Group. You may remember that Zach had some T&E Kahr pistols a few weeks back that he talked about. Well, Art's going to elaborate a little more on the Kahr story and hopefully shed some more light for you on what exactly they do over there. Well, Art Moore from Kahr Firearms is on the line. Art, how you doing today?
Great, Jake. How are you this evening?
Oh, I'm doing fantastic. So glad to have you on the show this week. So Art is the Eastern regional manager for the Kahr Firearms Group. Art, is that like the Mississippi River? Is that your dividing line for that, or how does that work?
Well, we have an eastern region and a western region, but as with many small American companies, we help each other out, so it's not uncommon for me to work anywhere in the country. But I do focus on activities in the eastern region, including the sporting good market and our government and law enforcement sales.
Well, very cool. Well, can you tell us where Kahr Arms is currently based out of?
Sure. Kahr Arms is based out of Worcester, Massachusetts, which is in the middle of the Gun Valley, you might think of, in the central Massachusetts area.
Right. So is Kahr possibly planning a move out of that area with all the recent events?
Well, Kahr actually has a corporate office that is in Pearl River, New York, and we have already decided and announced publicly that we are relocating our corporate offices out of New York State, and the political environment there plays a major role in that. We're moving our corporate offices to Pennsylvania, and we have our production facility for Kahr Arms and Auto Ordnance Thompson in Worcester, Massachusetts. Because of the proximity of the support companies that provide magazines and springs and other processes, that area has historically been ground zero for much of the firearms production capabilities in this country. We also have a factory for Magnum Research in Pillager, Minnesota, and that facility will stay there. We do plan a new factory in Pennsylvania that will handle expansion.
Well, very cool. That's good to hear that Kahr is, looking forward to the future and is growing every day. Well, I'd like to start this interview off by letting people, get to know you a little bit. So, give me a quick rundown of your bio leading up to, pretty much the day you started working at Kahr Arms. So, first tell me, did you grow up around firearms?
I did. I grew up in a rural environment after spending part of my childhood in an urban environment. And in the rural environment, I was exposed to hunting that was a natural thing. There were hunting clubs in high school and events in 4-H and so forth, so I was exposed to firearms in a very positive way. And then I had a law enforcement career where I was exposed to firearms as a profession. And then I went from that into the firearms industry, and I went to work for some other gun manufacturers about 25 years ago. So I have a firearms background, but I worked 11 years at Smith & Wesson, 2 different times. I had an interesting opportunity to work there with about a decade in between the 2 tours, so I saw it as a privately owned company, and then I saw it later on as a publicly traded company. I worked at Beretta, at Winchester Ammunition, and at another ammo company. So I had a very wonderful opportunity. I feel very blessed that I had almost I don't want to call it a Forrest Gump experience, but it was an opportunity to see significant changes in this industry over 25 years and be able to, I was there when the industry made changes to polymer frames. I was there when industry made a change to striker-fired weapons. I saw law enforcement and much of the civilian market move from revolvers to semi-auto pistols. And so I lived through and experienced much of that, and it was a great opportunity to see things happen. I see merit in many different gun designs. I can find almost something I like about any gun. And then as Kahr Arms came along, they caught my attention, and I recognized some very significant improvements in semi-automatic polymer frame pistols that came out of Kahr, and I ended up working for them. But there are some significant things about Kahr Arms that really make them, I think, the premier gun out there right now.
Well, let's get a little bit into the history of Kahr Arms. Tell us a little bit about the founder and how they became the company we see today.
Sure, Jake. Kahr Arms was really the brainchild and idea of our founder, Justin Moon. Justin was a sophomore at Harvard's Business School and was an avid shooter. He became a little frustrated because of the lack of high-quality, small, concealable, accurate guns on the market. It seemed like during that time frame, all the really high-quality guns were much larger and very difficult to conceal. So his family had come from a manufacturing background, so he started out designing a gun. He had the advantage of looking at many of the guns that were on the market out there, but he came up with 7 unique features that he eventually patented, and those 7 patents were all geared toward making the gun small and concealable and thin, as well as placing the axis of the bore of the barrel low in the shooter's hand, which made for less muzzle climb when the gun was fired. It created a much more pleasant perceived recoil. And he patented many other features that we show on our website on Kahr.com. One of those features is a steel subframe that is molded into the polymer. But he patented these guns. The first gun that he designed was our steel frame K9. He took that gun to the New York Police Department and asked them to test it. And they came back and, with rave reviews, loved the gun and said it would fit into a need that they had for a deep cover concealed gun for off-duty and undercover work. And over the next dozen years or so, at any one time, there was somewhere in the neighborhood of 5,000 of our guns on the street in New York City Police Department. And that was the beginning of Kahr. He started the company, it originally was based out of New York City, and then as the company grew, he relocated the factory into Massachusetts, into that gun supply company region, so that he would have the relationships and easy access to the companies that made component parts for many of the other well-known gun companies that were already in existence in Massachusetts and Connecticut. So that was the beginning of Kahr Arms.
Well, what time period did Kahr actually launch? Was it maybe about the mid-90s or so?
It was. You were looking at 94, 95, and as I say, the first guns were steel frame, and then the development of our polymer frame line came along next, and we did something really unique there. Jake, the interesting thing about polymer frames that we've learned is that the good thing about polymer frames is they flex when you shoot them, and they make the perceived recoil of a pistol very pleasant. And sort of cushion the recoil to the shooter. But the bad thing about polymer frames is they flex when you shoot them, and they prevent the frame rails from being stationary and giving the slide a solid operating platform. Well, Kahr worked that problem out. They put a steel subframe into their, or molded into their frame, so you have the slide operating on a steel subframe. So our frames are 100% nylon, which allow them to flex and give you that pleasant perceived recoil, but they don't have the problems associated with other polymer frames that use fiberglass to make their polymer mix more rigid. You and I know that over time with heat, fiberglass will always start to delaminate, and when that happens, bad things happen to a polymer frame. Kahr pistols don't have any fiberglass in them. They're 100% nylon, and they have that patented steel subframe that's molded in, and so you have a service life of a steel frame pistol and a gun that has the shootability and carrying comfort of a polymer frame.
Wow, that's amazing. Now, Art, it seems like all Kahr pistols are very thin. Are they all single stack magazines?
They are, and we zeroed in on that as a market because it seemed as though in the 80s and early 90s, many of the other companies were trying to make very high-capacity pistols, and they got bigger and bigger. We realized that for defense purposes, that the best gun in the world did you no good if you didn't have it when you needed a gun. And the whole emphasis behind the Kahr line was to make a small, concealable, very accurate gun and make it with the finest components and the best processes. We did something a little different initially as a company. Rather than identifying a retail price point and reverse engineering a gun to be able to sell at that price point, we made the best gun we could make. We used the best components. We forged the small components. We machined them out of forgings to make a much harder part than you would have using some other casting methods. We used stainless steel slides only. We used a match-grade barrel that was far superior to anything that was available on the market in a production gun at that time. We used the finest gun springs that were available in America, and we used stainless steel magazines and a lot of other components that are not immediately recognizable when you look at the gun in the gun case. But when you start researching the techniques of how we build a gun and the components that we use, you realize that this is a high-end gun. And initially, the Kahr products were rather pricey because you were getting the results of these more expensive processes and materials. So many armed professionals out there sought us out, and many people came to think of Kahr as an expensive pistol. Because of our growth over the last several years and our manufacturing improvements, and we were able to bring into the market a value line gun that used the same frame and the same 7 patented features of our premium pistols, and we were able to bring our CW and CM product lines into the market for a shooter that might have might be more value-minded and might be looking for a high-quality gun, but maybe at a price that was a little more in their range. And so our CW and CM lines were born, and they retail at somewhere around $250 below the comparable premium models of the same size and caliber. So we were able to we still make our premium guns. We still make the high-end guns with the match-grade barrels, but we also bring in the CW and CM lines that are much more appealing to the maybe the new gun buyer.
Well, a few years back, Kahr Arms actually acquired a couple other firearms companies. Can you tell me a little bit about that?
Well, we did. Actually, it's been quite some time now. In 1999, we acquired an Auto Ordnance corporation, and Auto Ordnance also carries the name Thompson because Auto Ordnance was started by then Colonel John Thompson in 1916 and produced the Thompson submachine gun. And so many people recognize the company by the Thompson brand more than they do Auto Ordnance. And we've continued to make that gun and bring in some other historic American firearms like M1 carbines. We do a World War II GI 1911. And all of these guns are made here in the U.S. out of U.S. components. And then 2.5 years ago, we bought another iconic gun. We bought the Magnum Research company that produces the Desert Eagle.
Yeah, the go-to movie handgun for pretty much any bad guy in Hollywood.
You're exactly right, but it's also the favorite gun of many of the good guys too. It's interesting how many of the Arnold Schwarzenegger movies and even comedies and sci-fi movies all have had Desert Eagles in them. In fact, I think it's probably one of the most filmed handguns in the industry, and it certainly has really been quite a pleasant surprise to us in its popularity across demographic lines. It has been a gun that has appealed to the collectors because we even make a 24-karat gold-plated 50 AE caliber, and we make a variety of prestige finishes and so forth on 50 Action Express, 44 Magnum, and 357 Magnum Desert Eagles. But then we also do a line of guns that really appeal to hunters. There are guns that are quite accomplished in taking large game, and many of the calibers like 44 Magnum and 357 Magnum that were developed as revolver cartridges, if you think that they are respectable out of a revolver, when you put them in a closed system that you have in a gas-operated semi-automatic pistol, the ballistics that you get out of that Desert Eagle are phenomenal. And it makes the 357 Magnum and the 44 Magnum a rocket. So it's to think about it, in the 44 Magnum configuration, you have 9 rounds of 44 Magnum in a gas-operated semi-automatic pistol that you can fire as fast as you can pull the trigger. So it does tame the recoil of all 3 of those calibers. So it's an interesting product line. With Magnum Research, we do a 22 Magnum autoloader, which I believe right now is the only 22 Magnum semi-automatic rifle in the world right now that I know of. Jake, if you know of another one, let us know.
Will do.
We'd like to know. But we do the Baby Desert Eagle handguns as well, and we do a line of 1911s and other guns, and we jointly produce a gun through Magnum Research with Walther, Germany. So Magnum Research has quite a eclectic product line, including their big frame revolvers, which are some of the most massive revolvers you've ever seen in very large rifle calibers like 45-70 and 30-30. So it's a very interesting product line and a great addition to the Kahr Firearms Group.
Well, I'm going to have you on again and talk about these great companies. I mean, they're just some real pieces of Americana there, in my opinion.
It is. You're exactly right. I'd be glad to come back, and I think you're correct. We could probably dedicate and do a show on each one, and Auto Ordnance especially, because that gun has such a history with the U.S. military. And the Thompson, the Tommy gun is an iconic gun that was used throughout World War II and all the way up into Vietnam. And the M1 carbine as well. We have Thompsons in many military museums, whether you're an airborne ranger or special forces guy. There's a famous statue in North Carolina of an airborne trooper holding a Tommy gun. And if you go to the U.S. Navy SEAL Museum, you'll see our M1 carbines. So it's a really wonderful company that has a strong American tradition there. And on the 1911 that we produced, we tried very hard to make that gun look like the gun that was used in World War II. Even though it is a Series 80 gun, it has the internal safeties that you would expect in a modern pistol now. But for the outside appearance, even to include the roll stamps on the slide that say U.S. Army, it is a very credible representation of a World War II Parkerized 1911 that you can go out and afford to shoot all the time.
Well, let's jump ahead to the Kahr brand today. What's Kahr's bread and butter pistol? In other words, what pistol can you just not make enough of?
Well, it's interesting that you should ask that question. Even though our first guns were steel frame guns, we sell more polymer frame guns now than ever. And it's probably 5 or 6 to 1 polymer frames. It seems as though that the polymer frame has truly been embraced by many of the concealed carry customers out there because of its carry characteristics. And I'll give you an example. Our PM9 series pistol is our polymer frame micro 9mm that weighs in at 14 ounces. To put that in perspective, that's the same weight as an airweight 5-shot 38 special revolver.
Wow.
And it's slightly smaller, it's thinner than an airweight 5-shot revolver. And that airweight 5-shot revolver has a 1.7-inch barrel with a limited sight radius and fairly rudimentary sights. And in a package that weighs the same weight, you go to a 3-inch pistol cartridge that can hold 7 or 8 rounds. It has a much longer sight radius with real sights, with night sight options and so forth. And the perceived recoil, because of our patented features, is significantly less. Even in that 14-ounce package, shooting hot 9mm plus P ammo, this is a gun you can shoot all afternoon and enjoy it. So it's not brutal like some small guns and large calibers can be. And then we make the PM series in a 16-ounce 40 caliber. It is about the same size. The slide is a little bit thicker. And then we make a 17-ounce 45. And that truly is I think, one of the smallest 45 ACP guns on the market. But our PM9 for years was the benchmark that people used to judge small guns. We came out with a even smaller gun. To kind of give you a visual, our P380 will fit completely concealed in a man's dress shirt pocket. This is a gun that weighs under 10 ounces. It holds 7 rounds. And because of that polygonal match-grade barrel, it's able to push a 380 projectile at about the same ballistics that you would get out of a 38 Special. When it comes to having a fully functional combat pistol in a small size, right now there's nothing out there that can hold a candle to our small 380 line. Now, each of those guns also have their corresponding value series guns that share the same components and size, but we spend a little less time machining the outside of the slide, and we spend less time on the graphics and a few other things, and we only ship our value series guns with one magazine, where the premium guns come with a flush mag and an extended mag, but it gives the customer a value-priced option to consider. So we try to think that we've got a good gun out there for the consumer And then we also have our best gun available for the armed professional that's looking for the best component parts that are available.
Well, I love how Kahr has such a vast variety of concealable handguns. A couple episodes ago, we had Zach on, and he talked about some of the Kahr T&E pistols that he's fallen in love with. Do you find that people choose Kahr because they can find one that, specifically fits their needs, their taste, their, hand pretty much?
As we've grown, we have widened our product line, and many people think of us today as predominantly a pocket gun or a deeply concealable gun. We have stepped out of that just a little bit into what we call our T-series, or our tactical guns. They are the largest Kahr pistols we've ever produced. We do a T-series gun in a 9mm and a 40 caliber. And then we do, in polymer frames, we do a 9mm 40 caliber and a 45 ACP. So we have come out with a gun that's stepping out of our comfort zone just a little bit to see what kind of traction we get in the market with those slightly larger guns. And I think some of the guns that Zach may have tested were that size. And for a day at the range, that T-series gun is a wonderful gun to shoot. And it has the handling characteristics of our other guns as far as our trigger pull, that many people have compared our trigger pull to an extremely smooth double-action target revolver. If you've ever pulled the trigger on a really, really slick as glass double-action revolver, that's the trigger pull we were looking for on our gun.
Now, we hear a lot about new guns having a break-in period. Is there any truth to any of that?
Well, all guns have a break-in period or a curing time. And as you do that, as you shoot any gun, it does become smoother as you shoot. We think the best thing you can do with a Kahr pistol is to fire it. And there is also a balancing point, or maybe even I would use the word a compromise, as far as a manufacturer is concerned. The break-in period on a new gun, which all guns have, let's see, how can I explain this, Jake? It's if the break-in period if your tolerances in a gun are really tight, your break-in period is a little bit longer. But when the gun years down the road has the ability to shoot at a much higher degree of accuracy, that break-in period is not much to remember. I guess what I'm trying to say is we as a manufacturer have to decide: do we want to have an easy break-in period, or do we want to have accuracy later on in life? And our owner and designer is really hung his hat on the fact that our guns, even though they're diminutive in size, have to be extremely accurate. And you'll find that they are probably more accurate than full-size guns that you've owned. So we recognize that the guy who buys our gun may want to have a gun later on in life that has the ability to make targeted shots at 25 yards and beyond, even though it's a small pocket gun. So we continue to make our gun at probably the closest tolerances of anybody else on a production gun in the industry. One of the reasons that our break-in period is a little bit longer also is the fact that we use the best gun springs in the world. They're from Wolf Gun Spring Company, a U.S. manufacturer, and they require, all new gun springs require a period of time to achieve a preset, to reach a point in which the gun is going to operate at the optimum level. So, and I'm sure if you've ever replaced springs in your gun, if you've ever pulled a spring out of a gun that's been shot and compared it to a new one, you'd find that the U spring is shorter.
Sure. And Wolf Springs, I mean, isn't that the go-to spring for, many people out there?
Well, yeah, for many competitive shooters, and all Kahr pistols have Wolf gun springs in them. The break-in period on our gun may be a little bit longer required because of that high-quality spring and because of the close tolerances. But the reality, I've shot and broken in many Kahr pistols. I've never had any problems during break-in periods at all because I shot good quality ammo.
Well, the ammo can really make all the difference. And I've heard some people say the Kahr has a really long trigger pull.
Our trigger travel is the same distance as any other striker-fired gun. It's that we put the poundage of our trigger pull in the beginning of the trigger travel rather than at the end. And knowing that our guns are going to be carried concealed in pockets and handbags and in backpacks and so forth, we felt it was very important to put a safe trigger on the gun. So to begin the trigger travel on our gun, you have to meet the poundage requirement before the trigger moves any. And then you have to maintain that same trigger poundage until the gun fires. So that's, I guess I've addressed the two misconceptions about Kahr pistols, that they have an extraordinarily long break-in period and that they have a long trigger travel. And really neither is the case when you look at them from a factual standpoint. They're just different.
Well, let me jump back to the break-in period a little bit. How many rounds are required to break in a Kahr pistol?
Most guns, and this goes for most manufacturers, the curing time on most semi-automatic handguns is going to be in the first box of ammo, the first 50 rounds. If you don't experience any problems in the first 50 rounds, the chances are you're probably not going to have any problems at all. We put in our printed literature and on our website that it's recommended, because we know this gun's going to be carried to defend your life, we recommend that you shoot 200 rounds through the gun. Now, that's not a hard and fast rule. In other words, at 201 rounds, your gun's not going to change. The reality is that after the first box, the break-in period is probably done. The rest of the time, and it greatly depends on what kind of ammo you shoot, how hot the ammunition is, what the bullet weight is, and there are many other factors. But what you're really trying to accomplish is you're trying to allow those springs to take a preset. And that includes your striker spring, your recoil guide spring, as well as your magazine spring.
Well, that about wraps up our time together today, Art. Do you have any final thoughts for the listener?
The only thing I would like to say is I'd like to thank you very much for having us on. We'd like to thank the customers out there who have supported us and helped us grow from being a brand new American gun manufacturer to now being at the point where some of our competition's taken notice and discovered our market niche. So, thank you for the support that our customers have given. We hope that anyone interested in a high-quality small concealable gun will consider a Kahr firearm. And the best thing you can do is go to a local range and maybe even rent one, shoot our gun next to any other gun of the same caliber, and I think you'll see why so many of the armed professionals out there have chosen Kahr Arms as their daily carry gun.
So you can visit Kahr.com for more info. Art, where else can people find you guys on the web?
Well, that is exactly right. It's Kahr, Kahr.com, as our company website. We also have websites for AutoOrdnance.com and MagnumResearch.com. And because Auto Ordnance is a little better known by Tommy Gun, you can go to TommyGun.com. And there are links to Kahr's website off of any one of our other firearms companies. You can also feel free to contact us by telephone at our factory, and that phone number is 795-3919. And that is in Worcester, Massachusetts on Eastern Time.
Well, Art, let's plan on doing this again sometime in the near future and talk about auto ordnance. Thank you so much.
I'd love to do it. Thank you very much. I appreciate what you do.
Thank you. Bye-bye. Well, I'd like to thank our sponsor, Duluth Trading Company, for supporting Gun Guy Radio. And I wanted to talk a little bit about the Cool Plus Action shirt that I am wearing today. A nice blue color. And these come in short sleeve and long sleeves. But, these are kind of like the shirt I talked about last week. They have the freedom of movement, armpit gussets and everything, and the bi-swing back. And the long sleeve version has a roll-up sleeves that you can do a hook and loop button type deal. But these are also they're warm weather, lightweight. So, it's got the mesh airflow gap in the back. I'm really enjoying these. It's got the Napoleon zipper right here. This is actually, I'm keeping my phone here instead of the regular pockets or my side pocket on my shorts. I'm really enjoying these a lot. They're perfect for warmer weather. And like Duluth says, be a man of action and go to gunguyradio.com/Duluth and get your very own freedom of movement action shirt. Well, we're to the product spotlight segment. So we have a special. This is like a premier product spotlight here with Josh Coburn from Brownells, and this isn't even up on Brownells' website as of this recording. So it's coming soon, but it's a pretty unique product. So let's go ahead and take a look. Welcome to the Gun Guy Radio Product Spotlight. On the line is our correspondent from Brownells, Josh Coburn. Hey, Josh. How you doing?
Hey, sir. I'm well. Thank you very much.
Well, we're into the third installment of the Product Spotlight, and hopefully one of these days we'll start getting the hang of things. But for now, we're going to just wing it.
Absolutely. It's going to be a little rocky at first, but we'll get the hang of things. It'll be great.
And you have something pretty unique for us this week.
I do. For those of you watching, I have the Brownells Cylinder and Slide 1911 bushing wrench. We call it the mustache wrench, as one can see. If you're familiar at all with...
no, wait. You got to do the whole interview with it up. There.
With it up the whole time? I don't know if I can do that. That's a little rough. And then I'd end up looking at myself the whole time.
It looks good on you.
Well, thanks. Thanks.
I think you need to go for that look.
I don't know if my wife would approve. But yeah, this it's pretty cool. It works just like any bushing wrench. And this is a prototype version that I still have sitting around my desk. But what's cool about it is kind of the beginnings of this came from a situation where we were talking about kind of rejuvenizing some of the gunsmith tools and supplies, because tools are, they're around forever. They're quality tools, so they just hang out. There's no reason to buy and rebuy unless you can make them fun and different, or add some different pieces and parts that kind of adds value to it. And well, that's exactly what we did this time around. We added some fun, and that's the sole value, I would assume. But yeah, it's pretty amazing. It works just like our anodized versions and our Camp-Mar versions. And the history with this thing really came from that, from us really talking about rejuvenating a couple of products just to see what we could do. And after we thought, I bet the shape would work, the first person that came to mind was Bill Lockridge of Cylinder and Slide. For anyone familiar with Bill, even the Cylinder and Slide logo has had that curly mustache on it for years. And we called him up, we talked about it, and he thought it was a great idea. So we got together and made this thing happen. So now we have a really cool and fun wrench and tool for your range bag if you're going to do some field stripping on this or on your 1911. We're hoping to get it out there at like 1999. This thing is not even available yet. I mean, you're hearing about it really here first.
So $20.
$20 is what we're shooting for. Might come in a little over, come in a little under once we get this thing in. But yeah, we're shooting around that. It'll be a cool little add-on item. And besides that, you're gonna pull it out of your range bag and you're gonna show your buddies. You know you are, because we walk around the office with these things all the time. It's hilarious.
Well, it makes a great gift too. I'm thinking.
Absolutely.
We're less than halfway to Christmas, so yeah, there you go.
Yeah, right on. When we actually launched these, we launched it, as is. There's really no writing or anything on these. The production version will actually have the brand logos on them, but the cool thing that we did when we launched these initially is we actually had an old time leather snap case for it. Because it just has that kind of appeal. So, yeah, I mean, talk about a good gift. We gave away, I believe it was 3 of them, and out of the 4 or 5, out of the 5 we created, this one's actually Frank Brownell's, and Bill Loffridge got his too. So that would have been the total of 5 that we initially created. So we definitely had just a couple laying around. I don't even have one, and I was a major part of the beginnings of this. But I'll grab one when everybody else does when they come in, which is hopefully in a couple of weeks.
Well, we'll put a link up on the product spotlight part of gunguyradio.com. You just type in our URL /spotlight, and we'll link right to it.
Perfect.
And if people want to follow Brownells on Facebook, I'm sure you guys are going to throw it up on there as soon as it's up.
Yeah, we got some special things planned for this mustache wrench, so you'll see some exciting stuff coming out here in the next few weeks.
I hear photo contest?
A photo contest we did already. We may have to find some of our favorite stashes out there, though. Favorite celebrity stashes, maybe. We need to have great things like the original Magnum PI or...
Tombstone.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, there's so many good ones out there. Absolutely.
Well, thanks, Josh, for joining the Gun Guy Radio Product Spotlight, and we'll catch you next week.
My pleasure. Catch you soon.
Premiering a product here on Gun Guy Radio, so I can't wait to pick up my mustache wrench, and let's get right into the weekly giveaways. So, well, you may ask, how do you get entered for this weekly giveaway where we give away $20 in Brownell's gift cards every week? Well, that's easy. You just go to gunguyradio.com/winner, and you can sign up for our email newsletter. So you drop your email in there. MailChimp will double verify, so make sure you click back to verify once they send you a verification email. And as long as you're on our newsletter, you're entered for life. You can win up to once a month. So potentially, if you're lucky, I guess you could win 12 times a year. So yeah, this week we're giving away 2 $10 gift cards, so totaling $20 in Brownells, free, whatever you want. So this week's winner is John Eden. John Eden, congrats. He's going to be picking out some very cool stuff at Brownells, or it's not just Brownells. It could be Sinclair as well. So you can get some reloading supplies, some precision shooting supplies, some AR-15 parts, anything like that. So don't forget to subscribe to our email newsletter by going to gunguyradio.com/winner. Well, we're getting to the tail end of the show here. I want to remind you guys, please leave us a review on iTunes. We're only 10 reviews away from 300, so that would really help us out, help us get a little higher in the iTunes rankings, and most importantly, it helps other people find the show. So you can just go to gunguyradio.com/iTunes and leave a review there. And, a big thank you again to Duluth Trading Company. If you need any manly workwear, head on over to Duluth. And don't forget, they even have ladies workwear as well. And you can get to that by going to gunguyradio.com/Duluth. And also, big shout out to Ryan Cross, Hunter of Design. That's right, Ryan Cross has designed virtually all the artwork here on the Firearms Radio Network, the Gun Guy Radio artwork and iTunes art, all that awesome stuff Ryan Cross has developed. So very, very talented. Can't recommend him enough. Just go to hunterofdesign.com. And, don't forget, send your feedback to Jake at gunguyradio.com. We have a listener feedback and frequently asked question Google Hangout episode coming up soon, maybe as soon as next week. So, send your feedback to Jake at gunguyradio.com to have us answer your questions. And you can also record a voicemail message for that by using the Speak Pipe plugin on the right-hand column of Gun Guy Radio. And again, please leave us an iTunes review, gunguyradio.com/iTunes. And facebook.com/gunguyradio will get you to our Facebook fan page. And, gunguyradio.com for all the show notes, all the links we talked about today to get to the Kahr site, the Thompson Auto Ordnance, to even pick out your own gold-plated Desert Eagle. So don't forget that. And join, remember, maybe consider joining the NRA or the Second Amendment Foundation. They do a lot of good for, our, whether it's your hobby, lifestyle, whatever, they help out. And don't forget to check out the other shows on the Firearms Radio Network. There's over a dozen now, so go check those out. You can subscribe to them all at once by going to firearmsradio.tv/iTunes, and that's the master feed for the Firearms Radio Network. So thanks so much to Kahr Arms for art, for helping out on the show and sharing a little bit of his story and Kahr's story. Fascinating. Whenever I hear of a new firearms company, fairly new, mid-90s, that's pretty young for a firearms company. Lots of fun talking to him, and I can't wait to check out some Kahr pistols myself. So thanks for listening or watching, and we'll see you next week.
This has been a production of the Firearms Radio Network. You can find more information at firearmsradio.tv.